Everyone. My name is Ben, and I'm a health educator here at the Hospital Research Foundation. And I thank you all for joining us for our webinar this month, Arthritis and Everyday Movements. First and foremost, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country, and that myself and the presenter tonight both present from Ghana land, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I'd also like to say that this webinar has been made possible through funding from the Country SA Primary Health Network, and we thank them for this. The last thing I'd raise as well is that the question and answer feature is open during the entire time. There might be some things during tonight's presentation that you might have a question at the time. And even though we won't get to them until the end, it can be worthwhile just to jot it down straight away. Now, our presenter tonight is Michael Peachey, who is an expert physiotherapist with clinical expertise in arthritis management, mobility and balance rehabilitation, and falls prevention. Michael earned his Bachelor of Physiotherapy from the University of South Australia in 2001 and has since worked across various healthcare settings, including private, public, and the not-for-profit sector. Michael's been actively involved in many professional organisations, such as the Australian Physiotherapy Association Gentrology Group since 2011, served as a committee member and an auditor for the Education Advisory Subcommittee, council member for the South Australian Physiotherapy Branch, a member of the Joanna Briggs Expert Reference Group for the Aged Care Node, and is on the ACS Residential Care Committee. Currently, Michael serves as the General Manager of SA Home Care Therapies and has a wealth of knowledge in physiotherapy and arthritis. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us tonight. I'm very lucky to have you, and I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks, Ben. As Ben mentioned, my name's Michael. I'm a physio, and I predominantly work across home and community care. So the bulk of my client base is clients over the age of 65, sometimes a bit younger than that. But arthritis is a common theme with the people I deal with. One of the things that I really enjoy about my job is there's a huge emphasis on helping clients stay happy and healthy at home. And so there's a big emphasis on helping people stay independent. So looking at strength, balance, and mobility rehabilitation, falls prevention, helping clients who have previously been stuck on the floor following a fall, but also taking into consideration the other comorbidities that people do have, things like arthritis and heart conditions and so forth as well. So how did this webinar come about? Well, several months ago, for the City of Salisbury, I delivered a presentation about how not to get stuck on the floor after a fall. And a couple of the topics that stuck out to Ben, and thanks for inviting me along again, was the use of exercise and the focus on functional movements, but also how you can use graded exposure when you do have comorbidities and conditions like arthritis in conjunction with trying to basically get stronger again. So just to make sure there's no spoilers, I'll let you know in advance what the key take-home messages from tonight are. And the first and foremost, it's about looking at how you can actually optimize the functional outcomes you get, basically get better at stuff that you need to do, by making sure that we're doing the right things. On that, basically, what I'd like to call it, there's an opportunity cost of inappropriate exercises. Now, when you exercise, in most cases, something is better than nothing, but it's not necessarily what you're doing, it's what you're not doing. And sometimes doing too much too soon or too much volume altogether, especially when there's arthritis involved, can actually be a bad thing. So what we're going to be looking at doing is how we prioritize the things that we do to help with the arthritis, but also help keep you more fit and strong. But then also touch briefly on how you actually do the exercise in terms of the appropriate intensity and frequency, so that way you're not stirring up your arthritis at the same time. Now, in terms of the background to this presentation, I've modified it slightly from the one I delivered previously because it was very heavily emphasized towards about helping clients get up after they've had a fall. Now, that's not the topic tonight per se, but we'll use that as a vehicle, as an analogy to illustrate some of the key concepts related back to arthritis. Now, to put things in a perspective, a question that I often ask clients whenever I meet someone who's had a fall is, when you fell, how did you get up? Or Sometimes people who haven't had a fall, I ask, when was the last time you're on the floor? And sometimes people are like, oh, that number, the year has a 19 in front of it. Some people literally haven't been on the ground in 20 odd years. And so then I asked the question, if you'd had a fall, would you be able to get up? And some people are like, oh, yep, I'm completely fine. I get down on and off the ground all the time. Other people are like, I'm terrified. If I had a fall, even if I wasn't hurt, I don't know if I would be able to get back up again. And one that really stuck out to me many years ago was one lady I saw. She'd had a fall and she was literally on the ground for 2 days before she was found. And as you can imagine, she wasn't in a good way. Now, how does that relate to people in this audience who may not have had a fall? Well, to put things into context, ambulances get called out a lot for people who've fallen over and haven't hurt themselves and they're just stuck on the ground. So around 15% of the fall-related ambulance responses are for no injury or lift-only call-outs. Basically, hey, I've fallen, I can't get up, and they need the ambulances to come and help them out. Now, the problem with that is not only is it's a demand on the health system, but if you're stuck on the ground for hours, people end up in pain because laying on cold hard ground, there's an embarrassment factor there, particularly if you're on the ground for 10 hours and you can't get up and go to the toilet. But also people end up with ulcers and kidney failure. I've literally had some clients who they've had kidney failure as a result of being stuck on the ground, even though they weren't hurt when they'd had a fall. So even those people who do have an alarm pendant or they've got a family member who's there to call an ambulance, sometimes even when the ambulance is called, people still need to wait for hours. So can you imagine being stuck on the floor for 5 hours waiting for an ambulance after you've called them, on the cold hard tiles for an hour? I know one lady who was outside for close to 2 hours in the rain. But imagine just being stuck on the ground for 5 minutes on a hot day. So it's a big problem, the falls. Now, how is this relevant to arthritis in general and tonight's topic of conversation? So for those of you at home, here's where I try to wake you up a little bit and get you practical. Try this little experiment. So how's it all relevant? Okay, so try this. What I'd like you to do is stand up and sit down from your chair. And the odds are, out of the people in here, at least 90% of people, I'm assuming, or even everyone, will be able to get up from their chair. But now try to do that exact same movement with your arms across your chest. And the big difference this time is put your feet out in front of you, flat on the ground, but your feet are right out. Now try to stand up. And I can guarantee there'll be some people in this audience who can still get up. It's a bit harder though. If you've got extra capacity, you're nice and strong, how you line yourself up doesn't matter as much. But for those people who aren't as strong and you're borderline in being able to do things, just putting your feet out several inches in front can mean the difference between standing up and sitting down. What I'm trying to get at here is if you don't practice a movement and you're not familiar with exactly where to position your arms and legs, you can lose function. You haven't lost strength per se in terms of the individual muscles, but unless you know how to position yourself, what muscles work in the correct timing and sequence, it can have a bad outcome. So I'm going to introduce you here to Glenys. So Glenys is a really good example. She's a lady who didn't fall. She dropped her mobile phone and it bounced underneath that recliner you can see in the photo. So she got down on the ground to pick up her phone from under her chair and then she couldn't get up. And she was stuck in this position here until the ambulance arrived. Now, you might be wondering, did I just come in and take a photo of her? No, we taught her how to get up off the ground by herself within 10 minutes. Because similar to that analogy of having your feet out in front when you're in a chair, for those of you who couldn't get up, Glenys was the same in getting on and off the ground. This is the position she was stuck in when she reenacted it. And she didn't know where to put her arms and legs because she hadn't been on the ground in 15 years. And so she had the strength, but she didn't have the right positioning. Her problem was that she was straight on, trying to lift herself up with her arms. If you have a look at the back leg, her toes were behind her, which basically eliminated the leg strength in the back leg. And, front leg was trying to do all of the work. By fixing those particular issues, and this is the movement I got her to do instead, getting side onto the chair, lifting up the leg, and then lifting on an inch or two, all of a sudden, she was magically able to get on and off the ground. Now, she didn't get stronger. She just knew where to put her arms and legs. So if anyone here has, been to the gym recently and they've done something like bench press or they've done push-ups, you'll know how you position your hands has a massive impact on how strong you are. Having your arms off by an inch or two makes you weaker. Putting your arms back in the right position by an inch or two makes you stronger, in inverted commas. So when we're looking at being able to get on and off the ground, often the main thing that stops people is the positioning of their body, how they're putting their arms and legs, and their confidence, because they haven't been exposed to that movement for a long time. It's less about the strength and the flexibility. So when we're looking at what exercises we're doing, all of the research is pretty clear that when we're looking at doing exercise, we should be prioritizing strength exercises that strengthen specific functional movements. So if we want to get better at getting in and out of a chair, we should be practicing variations of getting in and out of a chair. If you want to get better at swimming, cycling won't help you. Even though I can touch type, I can't play the piano, even though it's exactly the same finger movements. Playing basketball isn't going to make you better at darts. Essentially, what we need to be looking at is doing the movements that we want to get better at, but just finding easier variations of those movements. So the take-home message there is when we're looking at getting stronger, when we're looking at getting more functional, we need to be appropriately selecting those exercises which mimic the things that we need to do in real life. Unfortunately, sitting down in a chair and doing leg extensions has very, very, very little impact on how easy it is to actually get out of that chair. Practicing all the side leg raises in the world isn't going to help you get on and off the ground. We have to practice those movements. So the next point we want to make is we've made it pretty clear, and this is a pretty funny diagram, I made this one up, that strength training by itself doesn't improve your balance or your ability on and off the floor. Just because you lift a weight above your head X number of times doesn't mean you can do a handstand. But what it can do is it can take up your valuable time and make you tired and detract from doing the important things that will help you achieve your mobility goals. So I think this is a pretty cool little video here where we've got someone demonstrating how some of the important movements that we should be practicing relate to what we actually do in real life. Essentially, practicing variations of lifting, lowering, pushing, pulling, and carrying makes us better at lifting, lowering, pushing, pulling, and carrying. Oops. But it's important to note, though, and this is super important when we're considering arthritis, and some of you may be familiar with the GLAD program. This is a slide in the GLAD presentations. When we're looking at both arthritis and strength training, it's not necessarily that any exercises are bad. It's doing too much of a good thing is bad. Conversely, doing nothing is bad as well. Doing no exercise is terrible for arthritis. We don't have the joint nutrition, we don't have the lubrication within our joints. If we do too much, it can irritate things, it can make it sore, it can make it overworked. So we need to find essentially the Goldilocks approach. Doing just enough to create a change in our body and make us fitter and stronger, but not so much that we're going to overload things. So how does this relate to exercise selection? So when we're looking at some exercises, like we can see in the top here, the seated leg extension and the side leg raises, don't get me wrong, those movements can be quite good from a general perspective. They can be good at joint nutrition, in general muscle health, in muscle strength as a whole, but they don't necessarily translate to functional movements and getting better at getting in and out of the car, on and off the ground, or off a low toilet. So if we swap those exercises for movements that replicate what we need to be able to do in real life, for example, squatting down, getting in and out of a low chair, step ups to get on and off, up and down a gutter, going up and down stairs, we can get the same general benefits as those top exercises, but we also get the specific benefits of getting better at those everyday movements. Now, just a word of caution. If you are already doing those top movements and you're doing like some seated exercise program, or you're going somewhere and you're doing side leg raises and rear leg raises and marching on the spot, take caution when it comes to adding in the functional movements on top of what you're already doing. That's where we can be doing too much too soon. And from an arthritis point of view, though you may end up getting sore, doesn't mean that the new exercises are bad, but it can be a sudden increase in activity, and that load management is super important. So we can start off with those functional movements which have the generic benefits to our joint nutrition and health and our pain, and they also have those specific benefits. And as we become more familiar with those and our body is more accustomed, we can slowly add back in the other, what I would say, less important movements, if you like. But the key thing is we need to be looking at a gradual increase. If we go back to doing squats and step ups and things, and then whack back in a whole myriad of other specific isolated joint movements, we can get back into that same position of being overloaded. So the whole point is start slowly and gradually build back up. So the take-home message there is there's an opportunity cost of doing the inappropriate exercises. Some exercises are good for the joints and muscles, but they don't make us better at what we need to do. And they take up our time, and we can end up getting sore for doing too much. So we need to choose wisely. So the third point is using graded exposure to minimize joint irritation. Now, if all of a sudden we embark upon a new exercise program and we, New Year's Day, and we've got the New Year's resolution, we might decide to go, you know what, I've got this goal. I want to be able to do X in 10 weeks' time and do a lot of activity too soon. What then happens is we go through this series of peaks and troughs where we do a lot of exercise and our body responds by saying, that's not cool, I'm going to make you sore. And so then we do nothing for a long time. And then we get all motivated again a few weeks later and we do a lot again. And we have that rebound effect where we get irritated and again, we do nothing. Where what we should be looking at doing is starting off slower than what we think is necessary and just gradually adding things in. So we're really sneaking up on our body and allowing those adaptations to occur over time. We need to allow our joints, our muscles to gradually become accustomed to the load we're putting them through, but at the same time, allowing painful joints to desensitize as well. Now, we've already talked about the types of exercise and the importance of choosing exercises that are functionally relevant. But here's where it's really important that we think about the frequency or how often we're exercising, most importantly, the intensity, but how much of it we're doing as well. So when we go back to Glenys, what was really interesting about her is in her first session, and she was like, I was stuck on the ground. It was embarrassing. I had to wait for the ambulance. I didn't even have a fall. I just couldn't get up. So what we did is we stacked up a whole pile of cushions, got her sitting side saddle on a chair, and literally got her to lower down from the chair a centimetre. Now, that wasn't hard for her at all. When I asked her, hey, Glenys, how many of those do you reckon you could do? She was like 30 or 50. So we knew it was really, really easy for her. So, I got to punish her for that and took away one of those cushions. So when we went down to 3 cushions, same thing. Glennis, how hard was that? Oh, dead easy, Michael. Oh, you dobbed yourself in, took another one away. And so within 10 minutes, we gradually lowered all of the cushions out of the way until she was comfortably kneeling on the floor and got back up again. Now, for her, she was like, wow, I could actually probably do that movement 15 or 20 times in a row. It's actually not that hard. I'd just forgotten where to put my arms and legs. So that was her. It wasn't a strength issue. It wasn't a flexibility issue. She just didn't know how to move anymore. Whereas I look at this other client here, Pat. Pat found it a lot harder. So here she is on 3 cushions. Now, 3 cushions, she said, yeah, I can get through about 10 of those, no problems. The moment we went down to 2 cushions, it was actually hard work. We did 2 of those and very quickly, we're like, you know what? I don't reckon you could do 4 or 5. Let's cut that away there now. We're going to go back to 3 cushions, and that's the height we're going to practice. Because firstly, if she got tired and got stuck on the ground, that would be very embarrassing and have to call an ambulance because she got stuck on the ground during her exercise program. But at the same time, Pat had arthritis. And so if we went too hard in terms of the intensity, this could have really aggravated her joint problems. So it was a case of, well, let's have a look at this exercise that mimics what you need to do so you don't get stuck on the ground again. But let's not go so hard that you're going to get sore. Okay. You weren't doing much before. Adding a little bit now is better than doing nothing, and we'll gradually take our time. Now, she's doing it again now. There we go. So Peggy is another lady who very similarly started off like Pat, doing exactly the same exercises. Here's her now, graduated to be able to get down on the ground and back up again with just a step and a cushion and kneel on because her knee hurts. And over time, what we gradually did was lower the step down even further. So that way it was less hand support and getting back up. But the key point is, as you can see by the change of clothes, this was done over a period of time. We didn't say, hey, let's find the hardest exercise possible, work really hard and get you stronger, because her arthritis would have made her pay and she would have hated me for it. So the whole point is finding the exercises that are relevant, they're functional, but starting easy and gradually working up. And then you end up over time like Bill. Again, Bill was someone who'd previously been stuck on the ground. Now he makes a point of finding a reason to get on and off the ground every single day, just because he doesn't ever want to get stuck, and he knows the importance of remembering exactly where his hands and feet go. Now, when we're looking at getting strong, if you are a younger person or you're going to a gym program now, sometimes the intensity is ramped up to a point where it's so hard you can only do about 5 or 6 of them. Now, from a strength training point of view, that is actually what the research shows is the most optimal to get you stronger faster. That being said, though, we've got to recognize that sometimes going optimal in terms of strength gains isn't optimal for you or me as an individual, especially if we haven't been practicing the actual movements for an extended period of time and we're not exactly sure, it's not automatic where our arms and legs go every single time. So on occasions, it's worth actually starting off on an easier version of the exercise, so that way we get the same benefits of the actual strength improvements. And pretty much all the research shows that if you're working at an exercise at an intensity where you can still do 15 or so, but anything more than that, it's not really developing strength anymore. You're just practicing the movement, developing endurance. But if the level of difficulty is such that you can do less than 15, you're still going to get stronger. Now, having a starting point of finding a variation of the activity where you can do between 10 and 15 will make you stronger. But it also has the added benefit of not being so hard on your joints that it's going to really aggravate your arthritis. It's gentle enough so that way it can help with the joint nutrition, But the other key thing is it helps you reinforce those movement patterns of knowing exactly where your arms and legs go, which is just as important as actually having the raw muscle strength. Now, something that's also really important in anyone who's exercising, but even more so important when we're talking things like arthritis, is the concept that we don't actually get stronger when we're exercising. There is an element of gaining strength through positioning, and that's super important. But when we exercise, we're actually giving our body a stimulus. And our body says, you know what? That was actually pretty tough. You actually break down your body slightly, your muscle fibers break down a little bit, and your body says, if that happened to me again, I'd be in a spot of bother. So over the next couple of days, your body goes through a recovery and adaptation phase. The key point there is if you do exercise over and over and over every single day, the same thing day in, day out, you're constantly beating down your body to a point, when we're talking intense exercise here, and not allowing it to recover. So by choosing the right exercise, starting off with a relatively lower intensity, and then gradually building up, but with a few days rest in between, this is where we should minimize those arthritic flare-ups, but it's also going to allow us to get stronger more faster. So the take-home message from there is the appropriate intensity and frequency of exercise is important for getting better at those functional movements, but it's also important to minimize aggravation. So that's me being chatting for half an hour straight there. So we were talking initially in the previous session, and this was the vehicle to talk about function and arthritis. Regaining the ability to get on and off the floor is important for safety and also improving quality of life. Being able to get on and off the floor is super important when it comes to playing with your grandkids, picking things up, not getting stuck if you end up on the floor when you weren't expecting it. But also, I've had one client who was super excited because they were able to get on the ground and clean up a bowl of rice that they'd spilled, and they would have had to wait for the cleaner to come 3 days later, 6 months prior. But it's important when we're considering arthritis that we exercise in a way that's appropriately fit. And by that, it's the right frequency, intensity, the time or duration, but most importantly, the right type. So we'll go into the Q&A session now, and I might need Ben to help facilitate this. I tried to get on half an hour, it's 29 minutes, so it's pretty close.
That was perfect, Michael. Thank you so much for that. Any questions, feel free to pop them in. We've had one come through previously. Someone's asking with a little bit more on the general physio side, with relieving pain or swelling after exercise, what's useful? Is it better to use a hot pack or a cold pack? And is there situations where one's maybe a bit better than the other?
That's a very good question. But when I previously went through physio school, 20 years ago, it was all about RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. What's really interesting that even Dr. Gabe Merkin, who was the person who coined the term RICE, he's actually flip-flopped on that himself. A lot of the evidence shows that ice has a very small anti-inflammatory effect, but it's not clinically significant. Heat can have a small improvement in circulation, but it's not necessarily that significantly clinically relevant either. But the pain modulation aspects of it are significant. So if you have a sprained ankle, the general consensus is rest, ice, compression, elevation. But the reality is, if you put a little bit of heat on it, it may lead to some increase in swelling and bleeding. Ice may decrease it a little bit. So to err on the side of caution, ice is better, but both can have the same pain modulation effect. It used to be, the other end of the coin was, if you have a non-injury, but you just sore, for example, you've overdone it with exercise, or you have chronic pain and it's irritated, again, the actual physiological changes in terms of circulation and stiffness aren't as significant as what was once thought. but the pain relieving factors can be very significant for individuals. But I hate ice. I personally hate putting it on. If I've had a knee reconstruction, a few surgeries on there, and all that sort of stuff. When my knee is sore, if even though I may have overdone it, if I put ice on it, for me personally, it's going to feel stiff and sore. So I go for a hot pack. I know people who are in the exact same situation as me, and their preference is ice. And both of them actually have the same impact at the local level. But for allowing me to get on and do stuff, and for other people putting the ice on there, allowing them to do stuff, that's more important. So the bottom line is, it's less important from a physiological point of view, but the personal preference actually has a bigger impact. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, that was a really good go over it. I mean, it might be the similar kind of with those exercises, just finding the one that's right for you.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing is, like, I hate to use the thing, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If people are doing stuff and it is helping, don't stop it. It's just looking at the opportunity cost of, if you're sitting there and you're doing a whole pile of chair-based exercises and they're actually helping you with your arthritis and they're helping, loosen things up. And then you start doing something that is about, getting in and out of a chair and that really flares things up. Doesn't mean it's a bad exercise. It means that maybe it's too intense at this particular point in time. So it's about easing into it.
Perfect. Really, really well answered. Someone's asking more about getting up on the floor. They're saying when they're on the floor trying to get up, a major problem for them is pain in the knees as they try to get up. So I guess around that, is there any advice that you can kind of give as general medical advice around it? Or would it be one that you'd say book in to try and see a physio?
I would say it's probably a good one to try to book in, but on that, some points that it's a very common thing. For example, there's a misconception that if someone's had a knee replacement, they can't kneel on it. And that's a common barrier I often hear. And there's no clinical evidence to support not kneeling on a knee that's had a knee replacement or a knee reconstruction. That being said, it was about a year after my surgery before I could kneel on it. So I had to go through a series of steps to put any weight on my knee, and I would literally stand there and kneel against a bed. And then over a period of time, I could kneel on a couple of pillows and then on a blue foam mat and gradually work myself until I was basically desensitizing the knee. I knew I wasn't doing any pain or any damage, but it still hurt like all hell. So I had to take it really, really slowly. So for me, one of my goals was to be able to get back to doing ground-based activities. And I knew that for me to do that, I would have to slowly work on it. Now that's my personal experience and what I went through. But the person who asked that question might have a completely different underlying pathology there. But the general rule of thumb is that I didn't just go straight into it and like no pain, no gain, because then my brain would have been like, your body won't let you put your hand on a hot plate. You're constantly flinching back and you're actually going to do yourself a disservice in terms of the movement patterns that you're going to ingrain. So it's worth working through, and similar to that little video of Pat there, if I asked her to go all the way down on the ground, not only was there a risk of her getting stuck, but it would have been so hard work on her knees that she would have hated me not wanted to do that again. So by doing an easier version of the exercise, there was little to no irritation. The next day she didn't have any. Sometimes she'd have a little bit of soreness during the exercise, but it'd go away after 10 minutes, and she's like, okay, cool. It was like it never happened. But we know that she was actually getting the benefit. But there is that trial and error aspect, and it's worth working on someone who's familiar with these movements to do that.
Someone's asking about aquafit or hydrotherapy or kind of water exercises, and they're asking if you still need to do strength training with those.
My answer to that would be it depends, and it depends on how strong you are now and what your goals are. For example, if you are having trouble getting in and out of a standard height chair without using your hands, at least 8 times in 30 seconds, then that means, we're not as strong as we could be. There's no age-related normal at which it's not normal to be able to get out of a chair without using your hands. Everyone should be able to do that. 94-year-old male or female should be able to do that, 4 to 5 times in 30 seconds. If you can do that and you can smash it out of the park and you get up and down stairs, no problems, at a low car and public toilet without using your hands, that's completely fine. If the hydrotherapy or aquatherapy is helping you manage your pain, absolutely fine. But what it is worth considering is, what are your goals? Do you have any problems in terms of function? And if you do, we need to be looking at addressing those functional deficits, because in the long term, the hydrotherapy can be really, really good to help someone with their arthritis. And hydrotherapy is really good at getting someone from 0 to 1 when it comes to exercise. But at some point, adding in gravity and adding in land-based activity is usually paramount for people to maintain their function.
Someone's asking that they've got their first appointment with an exercise physiologist. They're asking, does their training cover what you've talked about tonight as well?
In terms of the exercise prescription, frequency, intensity, type, and time, absolutely. They would definitely be all over that. One thing that not all exercise physiologists and physios for that matter may be conversant with is different methods of helping regain the ability to get on and off the floor safely. Some people have shied away from that because they're concerned that a client's going to get stuck in a session and, they're not strong enough to lift them up, or, they're going to get embarrassed because they need to call an ambulance. So not all exercise physios, OTs, physios do that. I'm running sessions for other physios and OTs on how to systematically do that without getting clients stuck on the ground. But ask them that question. But in terms of general exercise prescription, yes. In terms of the adapting that and the management of osteoarthritis, not all exercise physiologists may be up to speed with that as much. So you're going to have a very good conversation with, and same thing, not all physios too. And that's why they've run the GLAD program. I remember that was actually, when I first did that years ago, that was a very eye-opening program about the current evidence-based practice when it comes to arthritis management of the lower limbs. So not all physios, exercise physios are the same, is the long and short of it. So.
Well answered. So it's about one of those ones that, we always talk about, advocating for yourself and trying to have those conversations about a lot of the things you've talked about. What do you want to achieve? Can you do this?
Absolutely.
Are you the right person for me?
Yeah, and talking about what your specific functional goals are and going in there beforehand with the knowledge of what are the things that I can't do that I used to be able to do or I want to get better at. And if that's your B and you're currently at A, come up with a plan together about how you're going to get from A to B. And asking the question, because I've had clients do this to me, I absolutely love it. How does what I'm doing now help me achieve that goal? And if there's no answer to that, that's a good, prompter to help evaluate your treatment approach as well.
Perfect. Well answered. Someone's saying that they play soccer twice a week and they're wondering, is it going to further damage their joints?
So what's really interesting, and one thing I have to say about soccer is, I'm not a soccer person, but when I used to play basketball, I used to every now and again, get a ball in the finger, a sprained ankle by stepping on someone else's ankle or whatever. So there is the sport aspect to it. So I can't give you the 100% disclaimer. But a common misconception, and I'll relate this to soccer because it's important, is about runners. People who don't run have less healthy cartilage than people who run a couple of times a week. But people who run every day at the elite level have less healthy cartilage. Recreational runners generally have healthier and stronger joints than the elite or the people who do nothing. It gets back to that graph with the curve. Doing exercise a couple of days a week where you've got adequate rest and recovery, as long as the load is managed, is better for your joints and your arthritis than doing nothing. That being said, if you haven't done anything for years and all of a sudden you're going out on the pitch and playing a full 60 or 90 minutes and you're running around, you're doing 10Ks worth, and then you're so sore you're not doing anything for the rest of the week, it's unlikely to cause any damage, but you're going to be sore. So again, it's about moderating the amount of activity levels that you're doing. But the long and short of it is, well-programmed activity a couple of days a week isn't going to make it worse. If anything, it's going to make it better.
Perfect. Really, really well answered. It's one of those things that, we know a lot of people living with arthritis, they really get worried about, is it when I start exercise and then I'm comfortable with it, is there a chance it's going to be making it worse? So that's a fantastic description that it's really healthy to continue to do.
Absolutely.
We've got someone asking about their elbows and they're very sore with arthritis. And they're asking, about managing pain and around that. I mean, because that's probably, an whole entire webinar about pain management and things like that, which we've done in the past. But I guess in your scope about movements and things and physio, are there things that you can kind of recommend, or the pathway that maybe this person should start to go down?
Well, I guess one of the things is, first and foremost, is that elbows are less commonly affected by osteoarthritis than the weight-bearing joints like the knees and the hips in particular. So when you're looking at elbow pain, that is definitely something that's worth getting checked out, because it may not just be osteoarthritis. There could be other things, golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, something else going on. So it's always worth looking at. As a general concept, though, the principles that we talked about tonight in terms of graded exposure, progressive loading, starting slowly, gradually building up with appropriate frequency and graded intensity is quite often the answer. But again, without knowing your specific circumstances, it'd be hard to answer.
Perfect. Good answer to that one. And it's one of those ones that I always say is that you can also call, our free information line for advice around that. And then as well as just if you are finding that it's struggling, it's always a good point to talk to your GP, and they're the people who can start to refer you on to people like Michael as well.
Yeah. And I can see the question that's come up now as well about the exercise to help with knee pain, going up and down the stairs and hills. That's actually the same answer. The whole concept of if I all of a sudden if I'd only been walking on the flat ground, walking my dog every morning, and then all of a sudden tried to hike Mount Lofty on a Saturday and go from 0 to Mount Lofty, my knees would probably be quite sore. If all of a sudden I just try to start doing stairs every single day, my knees would probably be quite sore. But if I recognize that, you know what, by the end of this season, I want to get up Mount Lofty, or I need to get up several flights of stairs, that's where practicing step ups on lower height steps and then gradually increasing the height and then gradually increasing the volume is typically the answer. So it's about that graded exposure again.
Someone's going in with those stair ones as well. So is there a way to do so safely with exercises to help around those stairs?
Yeah, and here's where, believe it or not, stairs and in particular gutters is something that I quite commonly help clients with regaining that ability to do it safely. It depends on why you're struggling with them. But if I talk about someone, for example, at the moment who is completely dependent on their upper limbs for their balance, for example, they're using a walking frame and they struggle to walk without it, to go from that to getting up a gutter can be a big step, pardon the pun. So in that case, what I'd usually start looking at is using the walking frame with both hands supported, so there's no balance component, is having a portable step and practicing the element of lifting your foot up and putting up onto that step. Because for some people, catching the feet on the step on the way through is one of the issues that's causing them to have problems going up in the first place. And there's a massive difference in practicing putting your foot onto a step and then taking it back off compared to actually just marching on the spot. And it's very similar to those analogies we used before about, where your feet is with sit to stand or Glennis getting on and off the chair. Unless you're actually practicing that specific movement, your body forgets and they clip the stairs and next thing you know, they're falling over. So practicing what we call those foot taps, the foot on and then off, and practicing that movement is really critical. So that's one part of the movement. Once we're comfortable with that, then it's like, okay, well, let's now step up onto the step, but start with something quite small. And practicing, again, at a height where it's actually easy to get, a good 10 or 15 of them. It's not so high that you can only do 3 and you tuck it out or you're sore. So starting at a really small height and then over time building that up. Now that we can confidently get our foot up onto the step without tripping on it, now that we can comfortably have the strength and minimal joint irritation to get up that step, then it's time to remove the balance component. And so we go from 2 hands on the walking frame to maybe 1 hand on the walking frame, 1 hand on the walking stick, and then take 1 hand off the frame. So you've only got the walking stick, and then you take the frame away. So the whole point is we've broken the stairs, which is actually quite a complex task, into its individual components and started easy, and we've progressed it by gradually increasing the height and gradually decreasing hand support. That's how we look at rehabbing someone's ability to get up and down stairs. The art versus science there is finding where along the spectrum of what I've just described is the starting point for whoever asked that question there. And that's why blanket exercise prescription never works. Sitting in a chair doing seated leg extensions won't help you get out of a chair. Holding onto a rail, swing your leg out to the side or behind you and marching on the spot won't help you get up steps. You have to practice scaled versions of that activity at a level of intensity that's right for you and where you are today.
Wonderful. That's an amazing description of it. And it really highlights to me as someone, as a pharmacist from a background, just the amazing work that all the different allied healthcare kind of comes through. And arthritis is one of those conditions where, we always say it's going to be a team approach for a lot of people, and it's experts like yourself who can really just make those amazing changes in people's day-to-day lives. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time, and thank you very much for your time, Michael.
My pleasure.
If you'd like to say anything else before we end up, because that's all the questions we've had through, but
no, I've got nothing else. I reckon I've been chatting enough.
Perfect. No, it was absolutely fantastic, and it was. I feel very lucky to sit in for it, and watch as part of my work. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for everyone for attending, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night.